Okay, 5:30, having arrived, we are going to call Public Works, Properties, and Sustainability Committee to order. We have a quorum. Agenda was properly posted. Public's opportunity to speak. I don't see anyone in the room. Is there anyone online that would like to say anything? Hearing nothing, we can move to number 4, discuss and consider the minutes from the previous Public Works Committee meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from August 12th meeting.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Move on to new business. Discuss 2026 department recommended budget.
I'm going first, Cam. So included in your packet today was a memo and the budget details inclusive for our 2026 budget request. So a couple high maintenance or high ticket items that I'll kind of just go through from the memo. In our street maintenance and operations budget overall. So as part of the capital improvements plan that was approved, the ToolCat is actually a trade-in program is what we'd like to move forward with. So instead of borrowing for it, we'd like to add it into our operations line. So right now we have a ToolCat that costs $100,000, give or take. We have annual maintenance on it. As part of this trade-in program, we have to, get into the trade-in program. So that's the $15,000. We'll get a new ToolCat, and then every year we get a new one from, I don't remember who the vendor is we use off the top of my head, but they do all of the PMs on it. If anything breaks, they take care of it for us. So by doing that program, it saves us having to do any of the annual work on it and any of the maintenance for it. So that's the first thing. We have because of our calibrations with our salt, with our plow trucks, our decrease in salt usage, and brine being used here in the future with our 2 new snowplow trucks, we've got a decrease of $30,000 for salt. Out of our capital funds project, we are looking to do the streetlights at the DNR trailhead off of Main Street here. The DNR has provided $39,000 to help offset it. So the location of that is actually, the trailhead is on Hydrite land. The DNR owns the trailhead, but the streetlights will be ours. So it's going to be a 3-party coordination effort on that. We, as mentioned in previous meetings, we would like to move forward with a stormwater utility feasibility study. So that would be inclusive of Strands Engineering to do the study themselves, as well as any legal and ordinance updates on that, as well as some communications. Additionally, we have our village building maintenance line under Public Works. So we would like to increase that of $5,000. We've had a lot of HVAC units kind of failing on us and had a lot of preventative maintenance. And so just to make sure that we're not completely going over budget, we'd like an additional $5,000 on that. And then carrying over from 2025 into 2026 is the MPO planning grant. Due to the federal grant and working with the MPO, we have not actually signed the contract for that with the MPO, with the federal government. So we're hoping that's going to be forthcoming here in the upcoming months. So that money would be just transferred over to 2026. And then the following, we've got a couple capital projects for 2026 that are currently or will be in design here before the end of the year. So we've got the BB bus bike path and Damascus trail improvements. So with Heyday going on the corner of Bus and BB, there will be a bike path along their entire parcel limits, and then we will connect the path and update the sidewalk there throughout the school, so it'll be a continuous path all along BB. And then since that's such a small portion, Killian Trail was planned to be in the FMP like 2 years from now to be repaved. So we would lump that all into one to get the best price for all of those since we're all in that area. The other FMP capital projects or capital requests include our vehicle and equipment replacement. That would include our 3/4 ton pickup, an F-550 pickup truck with a dump box and salter attachments to be able to use that for snowplow operations as well. and our barricades are extremely old and we don't have very many of them, so we're looking to get new barricades for safety for our staff. We're also requesting additional equipment to help facilitate our safety and efficiency for our staff, including a trailer for the barricades, a forklift, and pallet racking. And then as we have continued to grow internally, we are doing our concrete replacements, and we'd also like to do small asphalt patch replacements as well that will help prolong some of our streets that we're not getting to. Our 2026 road, street, and trail maintenance capital budget of just over $1,051,000. So we have our street repaving, our chip sealing and crack filling, and then our bike trail and sidewalk maintenance bucket from all of that. All of those monies will be associated with engineering as well. So out of that $936,000, our engineers will put together the plan set as they did this year for pulverization for the planned streets of Nightingale, Clearbrook Terrace, Stony Heath End, and Cottage Court. And then depending on the monies from there, then we'll coordinate which streets can allow for crack filling, and then we do our annual sidewalk maintenance internally. Our 2027 projects that have been included in the financial management plan that require 2026 budget monies include Alley Street reconstruction. So as part of that, the water and sewer are going to be replaced, as well as the road as it makes most financial sense, and the road is in deteriorating condition, as well as the County Highway N Main Street reconstruction, which would be from Reynolds South. Dane County is planning on doing the bridge south of the village in the town, so we would coordinate and hope that construction aligns with both of them, as they will be closing N at this time, and so we would kind of coordinate those projects together, and water and sewer will have replacements as well. Some future budget considerations, always talking about that in the future. Our Public Works Department and our Utility Department is very small for the size of community we are. It would always be helpful for a utility technician, an additional Public Works technician. A mechanic would allow us, while we do a lot of mechanical things and can do a lot of work on our equipment and fleet, having that mechanic that's certified would be a great assistance, because a lot of what we pay when we go to get our equipment and fleet serviced is labor fees, and that would also help. We would correlate it between Public Works, Parks, and Police. And then a GIS specialist. Between myself, Dave, and Jason, the superintendents, and Jeremy, our utility tech, we do a really good job of keeping our GIS updated as we can. However, that's usually the last thing on our list in a continuing growing list. So, and then you kind of get in the details for line by line. If there's any questions on that, I'm definitely happy to answer those.
Do you know how much each of those workers might cost?
I do.
Yes. So kind of when we're looking at that future budget considerations, when we're compiling a budget for the committee and then again the village board to approve, we look at what resources are potentially available. And so really this section, and I'll get to the question, really what this section is intended to do is if the village board or committee would be interested in potentially either expanding or assisting operations. These are some recommendations that ultimately didn't make the final cut within the budget. We've talked internally about like a mechanic, for example, to find somebody that can service all the village equipment would be special. So like if you're talking about benefits, full-time benefits, everything, you're probably at least talking somewhere between 80 and 90. Like a GIS specialist, depending on what that background is, if they have any software background, you're probably talking about 100 to 110, depending on after benefits. A kind of rule of thumb would be salary plus 30% to get to what the cost of the employee is. And so, when we compare the Public Works Department to other departments our size, or other communities our size, we're definitely a small department. Even more so on the utility side, staff that are specifically designated to the utilities, we're extremely small. I think right now we benefit some there's large areas of the community that are newer. But as things like, as more maintenance needs and other things come up, it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah,
kinda
I mean,
moving
I
forward.
don't know that anybody would object to you guys getting more help. It's just hard without knowing how much it's gonna cost. And I mean, even with like mechanic and stuff, it might be 80 to 90, but we're probably gonna be saving some money too by not contracting out, right?
Yeah, and so I've talked with Chief Lang and Chief Archibald as well as what could like a shared resource be. So if they had a piece of equipment, they could send their equipment here, and we could kind of charge out per hour. Try to get that efficiency
Yeah.
and collaborate and work together. I think from a levy limit perspective, adding a public works staff is the most difficult. Utilities, there's a little bit more flexibility with the utility commission being able to kind of set rates. But I would say when I'm looking at kind of the overall budget, I'll bring that perspective. Public works is definitely a top need. A technician is a top need because that technician spends about 34% of their time on public work operation, 33% of their time on water operations, and 33% on sewer operations. So that would be, in my opinion, the next position up to fulfill what existing needs are.
Okay, and I know the answer to this next question is probably as soon as possible, but do you have a timeline for when you would like to see some of these?
Yeah, I guess in my opinion, I would like to do some kind of analysis on like staff per mileage, because that we can compare mileage in other community and kind of maybe have a tentative benchmark. I would say when we added a public works technician in 2023. We're probably one behind where we should be right now. So knowing that 26 is going to be a challenging budget year, 26 is not the answer, but 27 or 28 is definitely would be a recommendation of mine.
Okay, I have more questions, but I'm gonna open it to other people if they have any.
So one of my questions, especially with staffing, is, and you kind of alluded to this with the GIS being kind of pushed to the bottom of the list, is what work is not getting done in the current, like, you know what I mean? Like what things are being punted because we don't have enough?
Our GIS is fairly well updated because we contract with Grafe to do our GIS and holds our GIS services. If we were able to take that in-house, that saves that cost from Grafe. Right now, in an ideal world, I could see a GIS specialist also helping with our utility locates, because right now our utility staff does our utility locates. So that GIS is the main guy who's looking at all of our utilities, and so then they would be the ones going out to do the utility locates. We're not behind. All of our line work is there. There's attributes throughout things, and some of the older neighborhoods, we don't have all of those attributes in just because we don't have that information. But I wouldn't say we're behind. We're keeping up with it. It's just there's other pressing things that usually get done first. It's more of a winter project. So in the middle of summer, we're not worried about GIS.
I think a perfect example that I can point to would be, you actually track trees through GIS as well. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't know exactly what's in the system, but an example could be all the trees might be in the right spot, but sometimes it's important to know what trees are where. Mm-hmm. So if there's some type of disease going through the village, we could effectively make sure we go out and treat that. So that kind of a level of detail is certainly helpful from a reporting perspective.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I guess my question related to the storm sewer utility, the $110,000 is just for the study to understand what it would take to get a stormwater utility up and functioning?
Yeah, and I'm gonna take us just one quick step back, as this is the first kind of budget memo being presented at the committee levels. So when these memos are being presented, operating changes, if they're created a $10,000 delta or more, department's required to put that in the memo to be described at the committee level. Unique in the situation and why salt kind of came up is we had such a surplus of salt the last couple of years. We wanted to make sure that we were at least letting you know that some of the increase is netted out by this large decrease. And so when we were coming forward in the future, if we had to increase the salt budget, there could be an increase in the budget because we were going down from 400 tons down to 100 tons. It's unlikely that we would ever go, in the near future, it would be unlikely that we'd ever go significantly to that 400 tons, but just wanted to make sure you guys are aware and being transparent in how this is communicated. And then every capital item is listed regardless of dollar amount. So it's listed at the dollar amount and the increase from the prior year. So if it's not relevant to like a project that happened last year, like a specific road, it's just individual. So the building maintenance line, for example, has the last year allocation plus what the current request. The stormwater utility feasibility study is really taking that 110,000 is taking the request from start to finish. So not only is it the feasibility study for determining what are the costs that we're going to have associated. So Strand is finishing up the stormwater planning grant that we had and project. I believe they'll finish that towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. So once we have that, we'll take kind of what the capital needs are and identify some potential operating needs associated with maintaining our stormwater ponds to the extent that they probably need to be to make sure that we're not falling behind on maintenance. Then once we have a total annual cost associated with it, Strand will take what the residential equivalency units and determine how to properly distribute those units, billable unit charges. So not every property is the same. So a residential property functions very differently than a commercial property, and even all commercial properties aren't the same. And as part of that would also be taking a look at if a business had their own retention pond, well, they're not contributing to the system, so that would give them a credit towards what their billable units are. And those are the kind of things that Strand would be coming forward with and with a recommendation. I think the big question when communities talk about stormwater utility is, why go forward with this? Why should we change from what we've always done? And really, it comes down to the equity and who's paying for the cost of the utility. So this would not only apply to the current taxable property, this would also hit the tax exempt properties and really targeting the users that are generating the need for the runoff and the stormwater. So I estimated only about 80 to 90 of this would be the actual feasibility study. The remaining costs would be the working with the accounting software, working with legal, and then there's some community outreach dollars in there as well, because we would want to hold a public information meeting. I would likely recommend doing a residential one and then a business and commercial one because the needs are very different, and make sure that we have the proper staff resources there to answer those questions. What I do want to say is I would tell this to the village board and this committee, this should not move forward if there's not an intent to implement. This is a lot of money to study, get a unit charging, and then do nothing with. So if the committee and board ultimately approve this would be with the full expectation that we would actually implement this utility for January 1 or as soon as we're able to in 2027. Yeah. Hopefully, did that answer? Yes. Long-winded answer.
Anyone else have any questions?
Couple things. We did look at a stormwater utility years ago, and I remember when you mentioned, like, take for example, like the Piggly Wiggly, for example. A customer like that could implement practices to reduce their stormwater rate. Maybe they could hire their own street sweeper company or implement something like that. So there were opportunities for those large users to kind of manage their costs. That's at least what we looked at years ago, I remember.
Yeah, and when we met with Dan at Strand, they talked specifically about really how much in the weeds you want to go with credits. Mm-hmm. And so the option that we explored was making sure we had a full understanding of, because we want to promote positive stormwater practices. So making sure both residential customers and commercial customers have the opportunity to do their part to mitigate stormwater, issues, and then those credits could be properly applied.
Yeah. And then jumping to the street projects, a couple questions. So on Ollie Road, is it from Wheel Bridge all the way to BB?
One sec, just confirming. Yes, it'll be Ollie all the way up to Weld Bridge. Not all of the utilities will be replaced throughout that entire section, but paving limits, correct.
Sure. Okay, and then the same for Main Street Reynolds. Was it West Reynolds or East Reynolds to the south?
It would be the northern Reynolds,
Okay.
so west, east, that Reynolds all the way down to village limits.
And then do we know the detour route yet? Has the county figured out the plan for the bridge project?
The county has to use all county roads, so I do have a detour as last I was provided, and I believe it had them going maybe all the way over to 73. I can provide an update on that. I have a map from when they did their project information meeting a couple months ago.
Okay.
And there's also information on the county's website if you're interested before then.
All right, thanks.
Okay, I got a couple small things and a couple big things. And I emailed you these small things, but are we able to absorb into the current budget replacing street signs, like street name signs, as we redo the roads? Because I've seen some of them and some of them are getting kind of grungy.
Yes, as we redo all of so like Heather Drive and Bonnie, as we redo those streets for the polarization project, we look at all the signs and we replace those as we go through the streets project. So if you look at the Crawford plat that was done last year, all of those signs should look in very good condition because they were almost all replaced last year as needed.
Okay, and then I don't know what the paint budget is, but I would like to see higher visibility crossings at school crossings. So I don't know what the budget is for that, but.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So as we kind of get within the roadway supply budget, so if we look at 2025, we kind of have sub-budgeted 5,000. For 2026, we bumped that up to 8,100 with the conversations that we've kind of had at the board and the committee level to provide the resources for some of those high visibility paint and kind of increase those operations. I think when Kyla and I discussed, we just want to make sure, so our current paint buggy, so we have one paint buggy, so there are certain things that if we would have to have a professional service provider come in, that likely wouldn't cover it, but we can certainly, within staff capacity, we can increase current operations.
Okay. And then a couple other things, and maybe this is an FMP or a capital prioritization project, but when thinking about, and Paul has mentioned this a couple times, the intersection at Commerce and N, and then we've talked about the intersection at N and Limestone. Could we just start budgeting for, say, a roundabout? I don't know if that's what it's going to end up being, but I'm assuming that's the most expensive option, just so that we can make sure that whatever we end up going with, we have budgeted for and we don't go over.
I think if the committee has a recommendation for the board to consider for the 27 or 26 financial management plan, that would be good.
The full board?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it would be ultimately as we start, that April kickoff time for the capital prioritization plan, the committee could recommend or ask formally that some type of improvement be considered.
Okay.
And I welcome all committees to take, if Kyla has her deck ready, that this is what I would submit, let's have discussions about that. That's certainly something we could do as well.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions, comments? Otherwise, we can entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the capital improvement or capital budget as proposed.
A second.
Going to ask that you recommend that the 2026 public Works recommended budget.
Instead of just saying capital?
As he
Yeah.
phrased it.
Seconded.
Anybody have any discussion on the motion? Otherwise, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. All right, we'll move to C, discuss recommending to village board lowering the speed limits on West Cottage Grove Road from 45 miles an hour to 35 miles an hour from Fundamental Way to village limits.
So included in your packet, and if you drive Cottage Grove Road or BB's, you're entering or leaving the village, coming from the west, headed towards Madison, you'll notice that it bumps up from 35 to 45 within village limits near the school in the Heyday subdivision. And then eventually when you get into the town, it bumps up to 55. When Shady Grove was constructed a handful of years ago, it was brought to PD's attention as well as Public Works that we should consider lowering the speed limit through there just because of the subdivision as well as the schools. Given Heyday is starting construction and they're planning to be operable in 2026, looking to have a recommendation to lower that speed limit as there is actually no other 45 miles per hour within village limits. So looking to put it from 45 to 35 in that area.
Questions, comments?
Village limits to the west are what, just to the west of Bus Road?
Correct.
Okay. I'll make a motion to move forward with the speed reduction on County Trunk Highway BB from Fundamental Way to the westerly village limits.
Second.
Motion and a second. Quick question, do you know what speed that road's designed for?
I do not off the top of my head. Josh, would you have any input on what you would think that street would be designed for, Cottage Grove Road? Probably 35 or 45?
It's probably 55, I would guess. Yeah. I mean, it's a typical crown roadway straight, 2% each way. It has rule shoulders. There's no curve there or anything else. I think if Stowe was asking if something, I mean, you would design curves for different speeds, but I mean, you can post it whatever you want. It's going to be enforcing it. That will be the issue probably because people will want to go faster just on the design of the roadway.
Yeah, that's like, I think we should lower it. I'm just worried that I'm not sure ticketing is gonna be the thing that's gonna make people slow down if there's any other design elements we can do to that to make people slow
And
down.
the only reason it went to 45 is there's the transition zone, right? So
Yeah.
they went from 55 to 45 to 35, Kyla, I think then is next into the village. So their transition, this was a transition zone from the 55 miles an hour, and it's a rural section. So, I mean, I think engineering wise and design wise, it was probably designed to handle up to 55 miles an hour as far as just the geometrics, if that makes sense.
This portion was also county jurisdiction until we took it over when we built the Shady Grove neighborhood. So it was county jurisdiction, which is likely why it was the 45 and not 35.
And can we make a plan to tell people about it? Because people have been driving it for so long and they're gonna start getting tickets and they're gonna get pissed off because they're gonna say they didn't know about it. And I don't know, having a little orange flag on top is gonna be enough.
Yep, we can look to put our message boards over there as well and do a social media blast.
Okay. And I just cursed, I apologize.
I don't know where it transitions then to 55, but you may want to just briefly mention to the county that you changed your limits to your speed limits, and they may move that transition zone back a little further.
Well,
So
it goes to
we're
50
currently-
first, right? Yeah.
50.
does it go
Yeah, I would
50?
assume they'll have to do something because it's over a 10-mile-an-hour speed change.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they may have to also bump theirs a little further west, as part of this overall, just to give residents or any drivers, I should say, the ability to recognize that they have to slow down.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. No abstains, I assume. Okay, we can move to discuss potential amendments to the subdivision ordinance, chapter 274 of the village ordinance.
Do you want me to start?
Sure.
So included is so this first went to Plan Commission, as I mentioned, last month, regarding some potential updates to the subdivision ordinance that came from the ad hoc housing task force. Variety, considering alleyways, sidewalks width, reducing street minimum widths. The plan commission, was suitable to it. It should be noted that they are actually doing a tour at Grandview Commons, which is by the Great Dane in the city of Madison, on Wednesday, October 1st at 6 p.m. with Bierbecker, who did that design, as it has the alleyways and the narrower roads, just to get a feel for the plan commission. If anyone on this committee is interested in attending that, please let me know and I can put you in touch with Erin if you'd like to attend that. So with that, it's looking for just a discussion on what this committee's thoughts are as street widths. Sidewalks at the 5 foot is standard now. Any new development and any new sidewalk that we put in, we do put in it at the 5 foot width.
Okay, so maybe we should just go through these one by one. Do you have something? Go ahead, Paula.
I don't know, did we make these official with the ad hoc?
No, we haven't done that yet.
Yeah, so, you know, I think it's a little premature, like, shouldn't we, as the ad hoc housing task force, like, we haven't made these formal recommendations yet, because we haven't completed our,
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to, I guess we can sort of discuss and then sort of send it to the ad hoc from what some of the public works people think might be a good idea, but.
I think that was the plan, is from out of the ad hoc, it was going to be discussed, it was discussed at Plan Commission, it was discussed here on what our thoughts were and what we would be interested in seeing, and then taking that back to ad hoc.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
because the way it's like phrased there, subdivision ordinance recommendations from ad hoc housing task force,
Oh.
we haven't done that.
Yep.
So I just want to be clear about that.
And some of these are just questions.
Yeah.
They're not finalized ordinances. Someone's really important. So just talking about what we would like to, if there's anything we would like to see out of this committee discussed at ad hoc.
Okay, so I guess we can just go through it one by one to see if anybody has any thoughts, starting with alleys. I visited the Grandview Commons, and they have some alley places, and I thought it was really cool. They worked hand in hand with the fire department to make sure that there was enough access to get to buildings in those. I think it would be beneficial for us to allow that. The houses with alleys behind are really, I think they look really nice, and I think it kind of helps contribute to a sense of community, because you just come right out into the street and there people are. You're not just getting in your car and driving away. So I would like to see it. I'm interested to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, for that particular one, I'm interested to see how that could potentially play out for future developments. I'm anticipating, as far as this group is concerned, or committee is concerned, we would certainly want to make sure that those are private alleys, that we're not responsible for the maintenance on them, because that's where it gets to be very difficult and complicated.
I would recommend that as well.
As I recall, the ones in Grandview Commons were all private, private plowing, private. some of them
Garbage,
had
there's a private
and-
garbage.
yeah.
I live in a neighborhood in Madison that also has
Yeah.
those, and it's private garbage, private snow plowing.
Yeah, I'm not particularly interested in having a house that has double the infrastructure. Anybody else on alleys? Otherwise, we can talk about street widths.
I'll just, like, I'm not the biggest fan of alleys, but, obviously the fire department will have a chance to weigh in, which I think is helpful. And I did talk with Chief Gary too, about enforcement of people parking alongside alleyways and making sure that, aprons are long enough so that people park there and they're not parking in the alleyway and becoming an obstruction. So I'd be interested in both their and the fire department's feedback.
Yeah, when I went there, they had the roads or the alleys big enough for people to get through, but small enough that they had to go real slow in there, and you wouldn't feel comfortable parking on the side. And they also made the rear alley driveways short enough that you can't really park in the driveway. You kind of have to just go into the garage so that you can't park halfway into the alley. What day did you say that they were touring that?
Wednesday, October 1st at 6 p.m.
6 p.m. I'm not going to go to it again, but I think you guys, if anybody's interested, you should go. Street widths. Anybody have any? I guess my question on street widths is, what exactly does reducing street widths entail? Does that include current roads? Is that just going forward for new construction? If it's with current roads, what's that gonna look like?
Could be a combination of both. I mean, very similar to West Oak Street. When we redid West Oak Street, it was kind of, as JJ called it, a speedway through there. So we reduced the width of it, added the bike lane, a bike lane as well as a multi-use path. So you could kind of coordinate that both with new construction and new development, as well as when we have a full reconstruct, or if there's a certain street that we're interested in doing that, we could kind of separate that out from our annual pulverization project.
Do you know average street width for, I mean, I know it's different for if it's a local street or a collector street or whatever, but.
So our specifications, which we have a cut sheet that's located on our village website, and if I've brought them, I think, to this committee before. A minor street classification, which is a residential street, has 28 to 36 feet from the face of curb to face of curb for their width. A collector street is going to be 32 to 40 feet, and then your arterial is going to be 48 feet wide.
Which road, do you know which roads off the top of your head are arterials in the village? Is that just BB and N?
BB and N are
Okay.
going to be your main ones, yep.
And then I assume like Wheeled Bridge and
Oak Street.
Southern Grange. and-
Some of them are
Are the collectors?
Some of those are collectors. I believe so. If not, they may be minor. They may just be wider minor streets.
Okay, do you know what Oak Street, what width that was and what it was reduced to?
Ooh,
It
was
I mean,
wide.
yeah,
It was really wide.
Something to think about and consider, as I'm looking for that right now, also, Chris, when we're talking about this, is like the minor streets from like 28 to 36 feet. I mean, a lot of that has to do with then how you allow parking, right, on the street, and like how wide the street is for parking. So when you think about parking on a street, they need roughly 8 feet. So that's from the face of the curb out, 2 feet of the gutter for the curb, and then like another 6 feet of pavement. So you can restrict widths, but then you're a lot of times maybe also considering restricting parking. You can go down, and I'm sure a lot of you have driven some rural, some residential tight urban streets in the city of Madison. They'll make them fairly narrow, and then what they'll do is the drive lanes, instead of them being 11 to 12 feet, they may be more like 9 to 10 feet. And sometimes it requires, if there's a lot of parking on the street, for cars to wait for each other. If you've ever been in those situations where you're kind of like, ooh, this is really tight. And kind of letting a car kind of come by you. But that's only in areas where you have a lot of street parking too, right? In residential neighborhoods, just some things to consider.
So I live on Crawford Drive, so that obviously is with Oak Street, and it has not slowed people down at all. And it's actually almost more nerve-wracking, especially when I'm coming home. So like when I'm coming home and I'm turning onto Oak from N, people who are coming down Oak Street opposite of me are flying. And then you're kind of squeezed in because you've got the parking on, I don't know, north-south, but the right-hand side, we'll just say, as you're going on N. And I've had near misses. And so I've not had a good experience with the shortening. I think the speeds are still the same before we made that different. I actually think it's almost, with the parking just on that one side, it's almost become more problematic in my opinion. And I drive that every day. So.
I was reading a
That
study.
is-
Go ahead.
I think, I'm sorry, it was like, I think it's like 31 feet. I'm trying to measure on Google right now. So it's around that 30 to 31 feet face to face. It might be 30 feet face to face. I think it was closer to 40 before. It was quite wide.
I was looking at a
makes
study
sense.
that I got pulled up here, and it's, I'll just read from it. The most significant relationship to injury accidents was found to be street width. As street widths widen, accidents per mile per year increase exponentially, and the safest residential streets are the narrowest. And it says later that going from 24 to 36 feet is about a 487% increase in accident rates. So just looking at that data, I would be in favor of reducing it, but I think it also has to be complemented with other things that slow people down, whether that's bump outs or maybe even just paint. I don't know. Go ahead, Paul.
And I will say, I haven't seen accidents, right? Like, I haven't seen accidents on that street. I just know that it hasn't slowed people down.
Yeah, it's also hard, people like you that have lived in the neighborhood for so long, you get used to the speed limit on the street, and, maybe you have less street, but you're still used to going down there. And, it might be a different story if there was more parking on there, if it was constantly lined with cars on both sides, it might slow you down, but since it's not, it might not have as a big impact, but.
Yeah, I don't think it gets a lot of parking, does it, Paula? Does it get a lot of parking? It's on the south side, right on the south half of the road where the multi-use path is. There's parking along that side.
Yeah, the most parking is actually that first block of Oak Street. And so
Where's
that's,
multifamily?
yeah, nope, there's
there?
single-family homes on that side. So I don't know the
Okay.
block number. But if I take a right from Crawford onto Oak Street, that's the part that has the most parking. Further on down by like Governor Taylor's Park and stuff, not many people are parking down there. It's just that first block, but then that also becomes a line of sight issue, as you're approaching that intersection. And that's kind of where those near misses are almost happening, is right as you're turning in, right? It's that very congested piece right there.
One of the things that helps slow people down, which unfortunately is not a quick fix, is having a lot of mature trees around, which obviously is not an overnight thing you can do. But just if anybody has any ideas for other things we can do to help slow down
Well, the one thing, like Oak Street is straight. I'm on Heather Drive, that's straight. That enhances, makes people feel like it's more inviting to speed.
Yeah.
If we could have a limit, I don't know if this is a possibility in the development, to where you could have no more than, say, 500 feet of straight road before you have to incorporate some kind of a curve. Of course, the streets would look like a bowl of spaghetti, but I mean, that's just something to kind of manipulate the driving momentum.
A lot of times we try to do.
I'm going to say a swear word right now. Speed humps seem to work.
You can't see me, Josh. The plows love those. The other thing with like any of the newer developments, we do try to add. We do look. Some of it is in phases, but we do try to make sure there is a natural curvature to the street to help with that speed.
I don't know if I've seen this, but is there ways to kind of put in like little, I'll call them chokers, where you have maybe a curb come in for pedestrian crossing without having that
Bump outs. Yep,
Those
so-
those are safer
Bump
for
outs,
pedestrian
pedestrian
crossings, but they don't necessarily slow traffic at all.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
No, I guess I would say everything that's contained in this packet does a good job of allowing for greater variability of development and the potential to utilize these tools to help us when designing, whether it's for pedestrian safety, for the improvement of the development, or for improving traffic.
Anybody else on street widths? Otherwise, does anybody have any concerns about increasing the minimum sidewalk width? I don't know if that's super controversial. Curb radius, curb radii.
So right now, our ordinances do not include anything for a maximum curb radius in our ordinances. We kind of do it as a case-by-case basis. Josh can kind of speak to the development side, but typically we're averaging between that 20 and 30-foot radius around a lot of our residential streets. Some of them may be at that 15, but that's where we keep a lot of them. The things to note is the tighter the radiuses are tight and your street's narrow, you're gonna have swings of buses and large trucks that are gonna go into the other lane. So that's always things to consider. It's kind of when we talked about the N. Taylor Weld Bridge and the bump outs. If we were to create the bump outs going onto Taylor, we were gonna have a bus conflict going into the other traffic lane. So those are all just things to take into consideration when we're looking at plans and designing things.
Yeah, it's a hard balance between needing buses to, or big trucks to swing farther or go faster around the curb. Neither are ideal. I'm open to lowering it, but I guess maybe we should just kick it to ad hoc to talk more about it. Anybody have anything else on that?
Going back to sidewalks for a second, I don't have a problem with going wider either. Do we take that foot away from the terrace, or do we push the sidewalk further into the yard?
Typically, it gets closer to the road. Typically, we like to put, in new developments, we'll put the back of the sidewalk 1 foot inside the right of way.
Okay. Oh, okay. But then what is we don't want to go any narrower than this distance for storage, snow storage, in that terrace area?
Yep.
Trees?
Correct.
stuff.
So the right of way is 66 feet. Oh, I could draw a typical section right now, but it allows it, if you go a foot in I think it still allows like for a 5 foot to 6 foot rate, terrace, minimum, even with that 5 foot, sidewalk. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you're getting somewhere between 6 to 8 feet, probably depending on the size of the road and having your sidewalk where you mentioned it like a foot off the right of way. Good example would be if you go up to, West Lawn and kind of look at that. That's a pretty average terrace size. I'm kind of measuring it on street view right now, and it seems like that's 6 to 8 feet in a lot of areas. So if you widen the sidewalk, yes, you would lose a little bit of that one. But when you guys are saying widen the sidewalk, sorry, I might have missed it. Right now, the village standard's 5. Are you thinking about going wider than 5, or just making sure that it's wider than 4? A lot of old sidewalk used to be 4 feet.
According to this memo, currently the minimum is 4, and we're talking about increasing it to 5.
Okay.
Our
Kyla,
ordinance
I think
is,
your new standards already show 5, at least on your kind of
Okay.
development standards.
So the words
right?
don't say it, but the concrete says it's 5.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. You're just
Anybody-
updating the ordinance to match that, Kyla, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Anybody else on any of these potential code updates? If not, that's just a discussion, so we can move to engineer's report.
Uh-oh, I've been fumbling around and I don't remember where I put my engineer's report. Here it is. Just a few things on the development side. West Lawn, we've talked about West Lawn a lot. We had kind of a preliminary startup of the lift station today. There's still a few things they need to do, and get up to speed before we can actually start that fully up and functional. Beyond that, there's like a phase 6 left up there in West Lawn, and then that will be completed, to be determined if phase 6 starts this year or not. Quarry Ridge phase D, that's kind of the last phase of that, has been completely done. There's still, we've contacted the developer. There's still like an eastern extension of School Road that they haven't completed as part of that. We're still working with the developer to understand when they're going to do a small little portion of that. The reason they didn't do it is there was a large gas main easement there, and there was always kind of conversations on how that had to take place and how it was going to happen. Heyday in Cottage Grove, that's over by the school on Cottage Grove Road. You've obviously all probably seen some earth moving going on over there. So that is started, and the goal is to start to install utilities. And also they would like to get Fundamental Way completely in. So there's a little cul-de-sac bulb of Fundamental Way there yet this year if they can. We'll see if they can do that as part of that project. So they'll be working on that, the fall of this year, late summer here in the fall, and then through early next year. The Amazon facility, all utilities are installed there. We are still, Kyle and I had a meeting with the developer, their engineer, and the county today. They're still working on the county with what to do and how to do it. So the county has a decent amount of things that they're working with the developer on just to make sure they get them on TT and N as part of those road improvements. Most of those roads will be improved, widened, repaved as part of that project, turn lanes and whatnot put in. And when we get some final actual drawings, we'll kind of share those with the committee, but they are still changing a little bit. The thing that Kyla and I have been focusing on, and the thing that will be the villages to maintain after the project, is a multi-use path. So a multi-use path from that last roundabout will go north along the Amazon project and go west along the Amazon frontage of that project. So just the path being installed over there and getting it where we want to maintain it, making sure there's snow storage between that and the road, and then that will be something that will be something for the villages to maintain looking forward. Other than that, public works types projects, we have one project that continues to, I wish, go faster, and I'm sure Kyla does too, and that's the 2025 streets. It was great. All the street paving happened fast. That got knocked out. The crossing for the school down on Taylor and Wellbridge, that is pretty much done, except we still need the actual RRFB signs to be installed there. So the crossing was paved and up and functional again for school crossings, but the signs still have to be put in and put to use and tested. The other thing is the path. That's the thing that's been very delayed. And it's really not, I would say, our contractor's fault. It's really not Kyla's or anybody in the village's fault as part of that. It's a private utility thing. We've been communicating with them from the start, and Kyla knows, even starting with JJ, back with JJ, communicating with them to get these utilities that are underground out of the way. And we're still working on that. You've noticed probably the utility poles are gone, things have been buried. Our contractors come back out to start that project. They started to dig a wall in by those oak trees. If you recall, we're trying to protect some oak trees. There's already a wall over there. I forget what street it's right next to, but we're trying to put a new
Up off.
wall in there. And yeah, thank you. The new wall, as we're excavating it, we realized the power and some of the telecommunications were put right in the place of the new wall. Even though they had our drawings, they had the design, they relocated some things in the wrong place. So we're working on that. We still want to try to complete that all by the end of this month, but those private utilities continue to plague us a little bit on that road. Chris, I thought you were going to ask a question. I was looking at you, so
Yes,
I stopped.
I
but
do
will
want to
look
ask
at-
a question. For
Okay, yeah.
at Wheelbridge and N, do we know when they're gonna put that sign up?
I was told at the last meeting it was coming. It was going to be here before the end of September.
Okay, and have they, or are they going to seed all that dirt?
They have not yet.
Okay,
I was
and maybe sweep.
Yeah, I was misinformed when they said that the intersection was going to be completed. In my mind, that was the RRFB as well. They didn't believe, they were just, the concrete has to be done.
Oh, okay.
So there was a little miscommunication there.
Okay.
Yep, there was some miscommunication and I think there's some equipment delay. I mean, I think they thought they were going to get that faster than what they're getting it. And they haven't maybe said that, but I'm guessing that's part of the issue, is maybe they didn't order it quick enough, sort of thing. So yeah, they thought, well, let's at least get it back to functionality so that we could use it for school crossings and everything else, which is appreciated, but we still have to get those signs up. Lastly is Gaston Road. So that's another project we're working on with a water main loop along TT that then comes down, crosses the interstate, and then comes back along Gaston Road. This committee was more in tune to it because we were working on a potential path with Dane County that has since sort of been pushed aside of the county and the village decided not to move forward with the path. A lot of the reason is because it's in a township. It really isn't in the village limits, and the county, it's really a county path and a township path. And funding wise, it's just, as Cameron would probably say, it's not in the budget for the village to probably move forward with. Is that a right way to sum that up, or am I misspeaking on that?
No, that was right.
Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those responsibility things again, and if the county really wants it, let's wait for county parks and to come back and work through a solution. In putting water main in on the side of the road and where we're going to put it will not limit where they put the path at a future date. We're going to kind of plan to know that a path may someday go there, but we're not going to be installing a path with that project.
Recently, if anyone's kind of been paying attention to what's happening at the Dane County level, there are some difficult budget decisions that Dane County is going to have to reconcile. So ideally, once they're able to identify a solution and a path forward, they're likely to be have either more resources available or a better plan. But right now, any of these extra projects are kind of the first thing on their chopping block. Really, in my discussions with them, it's been maintaining what we have, and basically everything else right now is subject to getting eliminated. So I think it would be a good idea to revisit and just keep that active conversation with the county, because it would be a nice amenity to have. The timing is just not right currently.
Any questions or comments for Josh on the engineer's report? If not, we can move to the director's report.
So one thing I wanted to bring to this committee before I jump into my report, so as background, if you didn't know, I was at Strand Associates prior to taking this position for a while. When Josh and I, when we were with Strand, we kind of overtook the engineer's report as it was something MSA was doing for the village at the time. A lot of what Josh puts, his reports are great. I love your reports, Josh. You do a great job. Is a lot of repeated information every month, and a lot of it is information that I'm aware of as well as I talk to Josh, Christine, and every other Strand staff almost daily. My thought is if you guys appreciate those engineer reports being separate, we can continue on that way, or that I would take that and provide an update in my director's report for those projects. Just looking for that feedback if you guys want the reports to stay separate, completely up to you guys.
I guess my only comment to that is, as long as you're covering all the things that would have been on both, not that we're missing anything, even if you want to call it the director's/engineer report and you give it, and if there's something else that needs further discussion, then we can go on from there. But yes, consolidating them into one is perfectly acceptable.
Yep, and I would coordinate with them if there's anything that I don't know about an update, which they all know I like to be updated, so they keep me pretty updated on that. So that's not a problem on my end. It'd be a director's engineer's report.
You're an engineer.
I am an engineer.
There we go. Merge them.
Perfect. So for the director's report, Wisconsin Stormwater Week is later this month. Check out our village website and socials upcoming here for some opportunities to keep our Madison Lakes clean. While we don't have the Madison Lakes in our backyard, everything does drain to the Madison Lakes. So remember that. Spread the love. Our annual street maintenance program is going to be starting here towards the middle and end of the month. We are moving forward with Thunder Road and Scott Construction for two different things. We're going to be doing some cleaning and crack filling on a variety of streets, and then we're also going to be doing a chip sealing as well. So the cleaning and crack filling we're going to be doing on a lot of those streets that are 8 to 10 years old, kind of prolonging those life there to make sure the moisture isn't getting into the existing cracks. Chip sealing, we're kind of adding an additional kind of structural layer, filling in some more of the cracks that are more in width of the entire street to prolong that street just until reconstruction here. The ones that are being chip sealed are all ones that are planned to be reconstructed in like the 10-year mark, that 8 to 10 year mark. Sidewalk replacement and trip hazard maintenance. As of September 4th, when I was completing this report, we had done 75 sidewalk panels throughout the village internally, with an additional 29 that we hope to do before snow flies and it gets too cold. This has saved us quite a bit of money from when we were contracting it out. If you remember last year for the report that I gave, we were spending $8,000 for like 6 sidewalk squares. So we've really brought that down. We're also going to be moving forward with MAC construction. So in the previous years, we've used Safe Step, and they do both a survey and our grinding. MAC construction we're trying them this year. He's a local company that does a lot of City of Madison works for our grinding. He does not complete the survey, but when we were using Safe Step would do a survey, and then our staff would go review those cracks, because when you look at a picture of a crack, it's really hard to tell if the crack is actually trippable. So we're kind of cutting out that middleman. So staff is going to be doing that. We talked about the stop sign policy last month. As it's budget season, it's going to be forthcoming in the upcoming months. I didn't have a chance to finalize that. I am working with the street superintendent, Jason, on our PACER rating and certification cycle that is due in middle of October. So if you see me and Jason driving really slowly around the village with our lights on. We're looking at all our streets for our PACER ratings. I'll plan to share that information after it's completed. And then, as we had talked previously, the traffic counter, we put that at a mid-block in Michelle. So it's mid-block of Michelle in the older section, not the newer part that was just constructed a handful of years ago, just to see what those kind of traffic counts looked like, if it was cut-through traffic, more residential. Average AADT is less than 100 vehicles, pretty typical for that location of a street. It's a curvier street. Mostly residents are using that area. That's all I got.
Just a side comment. I had a listening session on Monday, and it was about youth sports, but there was a couple there that lived on Landmark who said, thank you for the stop signs. And they said that they have noticed, especially with the trucks, that there's been a reduction in trucks on Landmark. So they wanted to just pass along their gratitude.
I do plan on putting the traffic counter, now that school's back in session, in that location, and the stop signs have been up for a little longer, just to kind of get data to compare to from the first time that we did that area when there was no stop sign, no through truck sign, and it was also during school season.
So you're gonna put it right at the intersection then, or?
I'm not going to tell you exactly where I'm going to put it.
I'm not gonna go game the system.
I can't give out my sources.
Okay.
But it has to be on a light pole, so to be able to mount it. So that gives you kind of a clue. It's hard to tell. We try to do it very discreetly so you can't tell that we're counting cars.
Okay. I have a question about street sweeping. Does that kind of go dormant in the summer? Is that gonna pick up more starting in the fall?
Yep, we'll be picking up more now as the leaves start to fall.
Okay.
We fit it in the summer as we can with other operations.
I was taking my kid to the bus stop and I noticed a lot of, it's not gravel, but finer than gravel. I assume from plowing. Yeah,
Yeah.
grit
Yep.
on our sidewalks. So not sidewalks, curb. So I was just hoping that would get taken care of soon.
Yep, they'll be ramping up much more now than they have during the summer.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments on the director's report?
Kind of a little
Yeah.
bit, just one quick thing. Village board, because this committee, the super committee, I'll call it, also handles facilities. The village board transferred, or is allowing the fire department to use a corner property that is planned to be demolished for training purposes. So there's no intent to use that property for any other use, but just wanted to make sure the committee was updated.
You want it BB and N?
Anything else from anybody? Otherwise, we can move to future agenda items. Anybody have anything? Not seeing anything. All right, we can move to number 9.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second, non-debatable. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.